Friends, welcome to the behind the scenes recording of the Self-Employed Life podcast, where you get to kind of, maybe see some mistakes or all the unedited things that go on before we wrap this together in a pretty little package and put it out as a podcast. But in the meantime, you get first dibs on the content. And today is going to be a show that I'm sure you're going to want to catch. So let's do this. Now, maybe like me, you have a love-hate relationship with email marketing. As a recipient of many terrible email marketing, you might loathe it. But as a business owner, you might also know that it's one of the best ways to build relationships with your customers, provide genuine value, and to turn someone on a list to someone who loves you. So let's learn more about how to do email marketing effectively. Red-haired Rob is a comedy stage hypnotist, and platinum-haired Kennedy is a psychological mind reader who have spent almost 18 years each relying on their skills of getting into other people's heads to carve out successful careers in show business. Now they're hosts of the podcast, The Email Marketing Show, founders of the survey platform Response Suite, and founders of emailmarketingheroes.com. So wherever you happen to be in your relationship with the email marketing, Rob and Kennedy are here to help you make more sales and grow your business by sending more emails out that people love receiving. Welcome, guys. Really glad that you're here.
Hey, Jeffrey.
Thanks for having us.
Well, I am so excited. I'm just eager to wrap this up because, like I said, I think people have like a love-hate relationship with email marketing. And then there's the idea that email marketing is dead, which it's not. The problem is not that it's dead. It's the problem. The problem is that people suck at it. Right. So let's just get to the point. So we want to get better at it because undoubtedly this is, to me, continues to be the best way to build genuine relationships and build value and give people a reason as to why they would want to become your customer. And the proof is in the pudding. Let's face it. I get about 24 pitches a day for people to want to be my podcast. I pick maybe one a month, kind of stands out to me. And you and your team sent an email that was so exceptional, it did stand out. So I know that you know what you're talking about because it worked on me. So right. I am curious though, and I think it's important to talk about your backgrounds as mind readers and hypnotists, and because there's a lot of benefit to that in being a marketer, but at the same time, it could border on creepy because we don't want to think that people are in our head, and yet fundamentally, it's getting in people's heads that helps you understand how to market to them. So tell me, for each of you, I'd like to hear a little bit about how your background influences how you go about your email marketing.
Yeah, so as you've hinted already, our story is a little strange. So as a hypnotist, again, for like 18 years, I've been traveling all over the world, performing my show, hypnotizing people and getting them on stage. And the reason why email came about for us was actually that for me, straight out of school, for Kennedy, straight out of university, we wanted to just get up on stage and do our thing. We just wanted to turn up, do gigs, have fun, get paid well, and then move on to the next one. And the downside of that is that suddenly we realized we'd accidentally started a business we never planned on or wanted to have each. And that was suddenly meant we needed to do pricing and positioning and branding and all of this other stuff. And very quickly, email reared its head. And we're talking, email's changed a lot in the last 18 years. We're talking a long time ago when email was quite different. All you could really do was collect somebody's email address. You could merge their name into an email. And for us at the time, that was like witchcraft. Like that was so futuristic. We thought we'll be, we're merging people's names into emails this week. We're going to have hoverboards next week. Like this was like the best possible technology at the time. And so that was the best way for us to be able to sell at scale, to be able to write campaigns once and have them running on follow-up sequences in the background forever after that. And it worked so well that we never had to speak to anybody. And very quickly, we realized that the way that we were going to be able to stand out by doing email marketing, because everyone was doing email marketing, or so we thought at the time. It turns out almost nobody was, but like compared to now, we knew we had to stand out from the other people. And so we started to say, well, how do we apply the same stuff that we do on stage to our emails? So that, like you said, you can kind of have a deeper impact on people without it being creepy. You can find out more about them without it being creepy. There's no like pixeling, spying on you, listening into your conversations, and then suddenly showing you adverts for the hose pipe you said you wanted. None of that. That's how do we do this in a really fun, ethical way that people are going to like? And so very quickly, we started to apply some of the same techniques we use on stage to email. Like, for example, if you come and see me or probably any other good hypnotist, when you get into the room, there's a bunch of things that are put in place that that will make that show work. Can't really go into those too much in detail, but it's to do with establishing authority and the rules of the environment and what people expect. Now, some of those rules are a given. When you go into a theater and you sit down in the chair, you know certain things like I'm going to face the front, the performer's going to be there, we're going to be quiet and polite throughout the performance. We want to establish these rules. And so what we realized we needed to do is to kind of set the same ground rules, the same rules of engagement with our email subscribers as somebody who comes to see a show in a venue. Because otherwise what happens is somebody opts into your list to get your lead magnet, which is how most people are building a list these days. Nothing inherently wrong with that. But people are going to put their name and email address in to download this free report, which is already illogical, because if you wanted them to have the free report, you'd just put it on a page with a button they could click to download it. So it still doesn't actually make any sense in the real world. But they put their name and email address in to download this free report. And then suddenly you send it to them and they think the transaction should be complete. You offered me a thing, I gave you my email address, you've sent me the thing, we're done. They're not really expecting anything else to happen. And so what you really need to do is to create the rules of engagement and say, listen, hey, I'm so glad that you opted in for that fabulous free report. You're going to really love it. But now that you're here, I've got loads more value that I want to deliver to you to help you with whatever it is that you do.
So I want to play off something you're saying here, Rob, which is really important too. And because this question comes up a lot, and neither of you can address this, is the idea. Now, I've heard it referred to as training your audience. And it's kind of the same idea of what you're saying, right? Setting the rules, kind of training your audience. And as I've understood it, again, when you talk about training your audience through email marketing, that can sound creepy. But to me, what we're talking about is consistency. So I want to talk about that a little bit, because we tend to be a creative bunch of self-employed business owners. But I think you also have to, when it comes to email marketing, realize that part of your job is to set those rules, to train the audience, which leads often to a consistent looking email campaign where things are in the same place every time, which goes against the inclination to want to be creative and do something different every time. So I want to talk a little bit about the advantage or disadvantage, or whether you agree that should it be consistent so that there's a predictability of behavior, or should people feel like, oh, let's be creative every time? What are the pluses and minuses?
What we've got to remember is, as human beings, when we talk to other people, we are always influencing how people think about us, how people feel about us. We can't not do that. It's impossible. And what we've got to remember is we're either training them into the behavior that we think is going to help them and potentially work with us if we think that's helpful to that person, or we're pushing them away from that. We only do one of those two things. We're either attracting them or repelling them. And as long as what you're selling, and we trust that what you're selling is good, it's ethical, it actually does what it says and it helps people. If that's the case, then you should be doing everything you possibly can to make sure your communication is not putting people off. And this is when you have to become really aware. So my degree, my theater degree that I did, so I'm learning to be an actor and stuff like that. One of the things that you spend a long time doing when you're learning to be an actor is becoming aware. And becoming aware is like the most important thing we can do. How many people would you point out a message they sent, an email they sent, a thing they did, and they didn't, they didn't mean it that way, but if they were just a bit more aware, they'd absolutely have not said that. They'd have said it differently, they'd have done it differently, and they would have got different results. They would have upset less people, or they would have made more sales, or they would have not quite said it the way they sort of said it, or whatever it's going to be, right? So the first thing is about becoming really aware. And then, being consistent, super important, Jeffrey, definitely. So let's look at it. The number one reason that any of us get upset with somebody emailing us is because we've generally forgotten how we even ended up on their email list. An email arrived in my inbox this morning. I'm there, sitting there with my cup of tea, looking out the window here, and I get an email on my phone, because most people check their emails on their phone, right? That's kind of how it is. And this guy's emailing me, and I'm like, who's this guy? How did I get on your list? I haven't even opened the guy's email, the poor guy, and I'm already upset at him, wondering how I got on his list. The only reason that happens, the reason we report people as spam, is because we don't remember how we end up on their list. We don't remember the excitement we had with downloading their amazing lead magnet, attending their virtual event, signing up for notifications about their awesome podcast, or whatever. We don't remember why. The only time that can happen is if they're not contacting us enough. People say emailing too often is like this really big sin. And don't email too often, don't email too often, right? Don't email rubbish too often. Definitely don't do that. But here's the big thing, Jeffrey. If I only email you when I've got something to sell, that's when you get super salesy. But if I also email you with value when I don't have something to sell, then I'm building a relationship. Then I'm being a person of value in your inbox. So you can't forget me. I can't be seen as too salesy because I've given you so much value that when I do have something to sell, the audience are educated. We're all smart people. The audience know. Oh, well, he's launching his program. He's opening a new store. He's doing this new thing. He's going to tell me about it. Of course. So it's much more forgiving if you're consistent.
Yeah, I think that's so important. So let's break that down a little bit because I hear this question a lot, right? Because so often, you're right, people just turn to their email list when they have something to sell. What you're suggesting, as I understand it, is that there should be some level of consistency. Let's say you have a regular newsletter. So there's a cadence to this, and this is the word that's used in email marketing a lot, is to understand the cadence, even an annual cadence. If you know you have certain parts of the year, you have something coming up that you're launching, the key is to look at, okay, that's a launch period, that's a campaign period, but fill in all the time in between that with something that's giving a value. So is that something you stress to get people to think long-term in a full cadence? Rob sounds like he has something to say on that.
There's an interesting thing. There's an interesting thing to this, and it's to balance out the fact that sure, you want to be emailing all the time, even when you haven't got something for sale. But if, like us, you have something that's for sale all of the time, you can and should email and sell that all of the time, but do it in a valuable way. So this is an interesting thing. Most businesses will fall into one of two camps. They'll either sometimes have something for sale, when they're in launch mode, and then they're looking for something to do in between launches, or they'll be like us, where we open our program, it's open all the time, 365 days of the year. We are not qualified to tell you when you're ready to join our program. So like when you're ready, we're here, it's open. You don't have to wait until our next intake. You can come and join. That's awesome. And so businesses will fall into one of those two camps, or they might be somewhere in the middle where they've got something that's open consistently all the time, and then they do a launch of a mastermind or a bigger program or a new store or something like that. And so what we do is we do email every day and we do deliver value every day, but we also make an offer every day just because our thing is open every day, and I don't know when you're going to want to turn up.
That's the important distinction. I want to stress that. The important distinction is that to decide, this is what I want all you warriors listening in, you need to understand in your own business whether do you have something to sell every day that has that consistency to it, or like I think most self-employed businesses have an occasional offer, an occasional launch. The key is just to know in which camp you're in. I love that you're making that point.
And so what that means is you can email every day and be a person of value in their inbox, but you can also make an offer in every email. But the key really is it's about don't just turn up when you want to make a sale. Turn up every day. Turn up every or 3 times a week or 4 times a week, whatever. We have this wild thing we say that gets us in trouble a lot. But basically we say that if you're not emailing your list, it doesn't matter what you sell or who you sell it to. If you're not emailing your list at least 3 times a week, you might as well not bother. We can go into the science of why that's true if you want. But like that's really the level at which it's going to make any sizable difference to your business. So at least 3 times a week. And if you do those emails can all be valuable, and 100% of them can make an offer. But what you've got to be careful of, what a lot of people do with their emails is if you took out the offer, their email wouldn't make sense anymore, because they're just leading into it to talk about an offer. When they've got nothing to sell, the email makes no sense. It's just another reason to buy their thing. And what we want to do 90% of the time is to have those emails make sense in their own right. If you took the offer out, if you removed it, the email would still make sense. It's still got a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's still got something that means something to somebody and helps them. And then when you do put the offer in, it's usually a very casual. And if you want to know how to take this further, then you can come and enroll this program. You can buy this thing. You can book a call. You can whatever your call to action is.
I love that.
Yeah, so it's a really interesting thing about the offer as well, right? When people say, oh, you need to have an offer, the offer does not always have to be a paid offer. It just has to be something to take the understanding, the relationship to the next level. Because after all, since like 2021 October time, when Apple released iOS 15 and just set fire to open rates, basically, they don't matter anymore because Apple's marking everything as open, whether it's been open or not. And Android, they're over in the other corner of the ring going, we're going to mark them all as unopened, even if people are like, basically, none of that matters anymore. But if you in every email have something to click to, whether it's, hey, come and join our membership, the League of Email Marketing Heroes, or it might be a paid offer, but your offer. So on a Wednesday, our email is often a bit of value. I actually in the email, very good, high value stuff. But then it's like, we talk about this in depth and give you the whole strategy on this week's episode of the Email Marketing Show. Here's the link to the podcast. And we take them over to Apple iTunes or whatever it's going to be, right? So it could be to your free, your live stream. It could be to anything. But the really important thing, and we're going full circle here because of your amazing hosting skills by the looks of it, is because this goes back to this idea of being consistent. Because you want to send people through these pieces of content consistently. We want to consistently be training people to click the links in our emails. Because what happens on a subconscious level? Let's get into like the Robin Kennedy stuff, right? Which is hypnotist, mind reader. When people click the links in your emails, how do they feel? Do they feel like every time I click a link in his email, he's asking me for $2,000? Every flipping time he's asking me, it's a link, I'll be $2,000 on the other side of that. Which means it's not exciting. I'm not intrigued about that anymore because it's boring. Whereas if every time you click a link in one of our emails, there's something valuable, entertaining, something's going to help you on the other side. Sometimes it'll be paid, sometimes it'll be completely free, but you know there is a positive emotion. What happens when you see a link in one of our emails in the future? Your subconscious says, you should click that link. That's a really good link to click. Because every time you do, you feel really good about it. And
now,
so
I can imagine, so sorry to interrupt you, Kennedy. I'm thinking, I think my head is still processing that you send an email out every day and you're saying, well, at least 3 times a week. So I can imagine if everyone is thinking like I'm like, how do you come up with enough content, right? And granted, there are 2 of you, so maybe that helps, but how do you literally come up with something of value every day?
Here's the shocking thing. I started writing an email every single day because I'm dyslexic. I was like, I'm going to stand up in the face of dyslexia and be like, that's my reason to email every day, right? We don't send one daily email. We have 4 different sub-niche brands. We send 4 daily emails. And the only way that's possible to do is if you've got a shortcut, right? When you're learning lines as an actor, when you're working on new material as a hypnotist and going on tour with a brand new show you've never been on stage before, you've got to come up with shortcuts. And so that's all we've done our entire lives. Our most recent business is teaching email marketing. The 3 other ones, we were just using this stuff. And all we're doing now in Email Marketing Heroes, honestly, is just copying and pasting out what we've been doing in the other businesses to share it with others, right? That's all we're doing. It's quite simple.
Right.
But so, Rob, do you want to talk? I mean, the big thing, right? Before I let Rob out of his little box again, I've just locked him away in that little cupboard. That's why you can't hear him speaking. The thing that happens is people run out of content because they're talking about the wrong stuff. The reason people run out of content is because they're emailing about their products and services. They're emailing about the thing they sell. And the problem with that is that's when you're going to get your lowest ever number of people opening your emails, the lowest number of people taking any notice of you. Because think about it. If I sell our lovely membership, The League, about email marketing, and I email you every day to tell you about The League, who's going to open that email? Only people who are thinking about joining the league, who want to just know what the latest offer is, want to know what the bonus if I buy this week is, or what the discount is, which we don't do, right? Whereas, so that means it's only people who are almost already going to buy anyway. So what email starts to become is email selling, not email marketing. That's what most people have done for years. Email selling, and everybody else has been watching them doing it and going, oh, that looks like it's good. And everyone's going, no, it's terrible. But no one wants to talk about how terrible it is. We want to do email marketing, which almost nobody's doing. We want to get people who are not already at the consideration phase to actually open our emails. And the only way we can do it is by not emailing about our products or services. And I think Rob's going to probably share the framework on how to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds crazy, but people don't really care about the thing you sell. They care about other stuff. So what we look to do with our emails is instead of talking about what it is we sell, that's a byproduct. Instead, we talk about and we look after what we call the emotional needs of our audience. So when somebody comes and joins your list for some reason, they haven't done it by accident. They've done it because they've got some kind of problem and they think that you might have the solution to the problem. And so your job as a person sending emails is not just to sell them the thing that solves the problem, but also to solve the problem in little bits as you go, or help to scatter things that will help to solve the problem. So for example, most of our audience are small email marketing heroes, are small 1 to 2 person businesses who might have a little team around them doing up to a couple of £1 million a year. That's kind of who we are, from somewhere between starting out to a couple of million quid a year. Well, those business owners all kind of have the same things in common. Sure, they want to sell more of their stuff. That's why they joined our list. But in terms of what they care about and what's going to keep them addicted to our emails, it's lots of other stuff. So for example, they care about things like, how do I work at home and be productive when I've got kids and pets and partners around? Or our partner, hopefully. How do I, why every time I get on this Zoom call, does the Amazon delivery man turn up at the door? How will I make sure that when the accountant tells me what my tax bill is at the end of the year, I've actually planned for it and I've put the money away? Like, we've all got these same things. They've got nothing to do with email marketing. They're just the things that connect our audience. Really great example of this is one of our clients, Nick, makes and sells handmade keepsakes out of baby clothes. So when your babies outgrow their clothes, you send her the clothes and she turns them into teddy bears and they've got a lifelong keepsake. Really cool thing. But again, you don't buy those every day. So how does she keep a list engaged when she's emailing those often every day? Well, the way you do it is by talking about the things that audience have in common. Those people are parents and grandparents. So what you talk about is the things that matter to parents and grandparents. How do you keep the kids engaged during the school holidays when you're on a budget? What do you do to help with this? How do you help with that? What about fussy eaters? Like all the stuff they care about that you might not be a particular expert in, but you get to share your journey along the way as a parent, as a business owner, as a whatever it's going to be. So so what we do is we tell stories about the stuff that's going on in our everyday life as business owners. Nothing to do with email marketing, very little to do with business, just the stuff that really matters to those people. We can give you some examples if you like.
Well, it's interesting about it. It's making me think that it's, in a way, it's similar to what people do almost daily on social media, right? They think about something on their mind. Maybe they share a philosophy, they share a common experience with the people that matter to them, and they go to Facebook and they make a post, or they go to LinkedIn. When really what you're saying is that, why not execute that as an email and have that shared experience with people that are actually closest to you? I think that's a really cool frame to look at it too. It's like just so now, in a logistical standpoint, do you plan a content calendar way ahead, or are you spontaneous? Do you wake up on Tuesday and think, this is what I want to talk about today, and it's a problem that you think your audience will relate to?
Let's give you another hack on how to come up with a bottomless number of these stories. We wanted to make it impossible for us to run out of them. Like, not just like tricky to run out, like impossible. What's really interesting you said there, Jeffrey, is though to think about email as another app on people's phones, which is just snuggled between TikTok and Tinder. Basically is what it is, right? It's there on people's phones. It's just sat there and people are checking it there. So why can't it be another content channel? We're not creating more work here. We're just saying you get to reach out to people directly in a way that you own the data channel, the email addresses, in a way you can't, because you're victim of the Instagram algorithm and you have to do reels and point at silly words and you have to do all of that stuff just to stay cool and up on the algorithm. In email, you don't have to do that. So how do you come up with these ideas? And then we'll talk about how do we relate them to your product and turn them into sales as well, because we can share the whole framework. So the first piece that Rob's told you about, this 3-phase framework, is the first stage, which is called the story phase. Coming up with these stories, we have, I think, 11 different ways of coming up with the stories. But the simplest one you could go and use right now is literally to ask you this question that we carefully psychologically stacked. And it sounds really simple, but it unlocks your brain. And it's this. What is the least boring thing that happened in the last 24 hours? Now, it's not what's the most boring, what's the most interesting thing, because your brain puts up parameters around, nothing interesting ever happens to me. I'm boring. I just sit at home and I work on the... No, what's the least boring thing? Because that thing will rise to the top. It might be the fact that I've got the painters and decorators in my house right now and I don't know when they're about to use the sander. It might be that. It could be what's the least, we all know what the least boring thing that happened is in the last 24 hours, and we can create a story out of that. And our emails in total, on average, they're even shorter than we thought they were. We did a word count on them the other month, and they're on average 175 words. 175 words, including the three phases. The first phase is that story. And I think of that story when I'm walking down the stairs first thing in the morning at 5:30, because I'm one of those early morning people. Sorry. So I walked down at 5:30 and I'm thinking, what was the least boring thing that happened? And I'm putting the kettle on. I'm making my first cup of tea of the day. And while the kettle boils, I'm now thinking, okay, I'm going to write that email. So I open up the laptop and I start writing the email. By the time the kettle's boiled, now, having done this for 4 or 5 years, I've written and sent the email in 4 or 5 minutes. Now, to begin with, bear in mind, I am dyslexic. To begin with, it took me 20 minutes a day. But 20 minutes for the most valuable thing that I do in my business that makes me the most sales, I'll do that every single day, because most of us have to ask ourselves a question as business owners. What did you actually do today that's going to make you a sale? Because most of the time, the answer is nothing. We put some posts on social media. That's going to build you an audience. It's great. It's really important. But what did you do today that's going to make you a sale? If we can do something for 20 minutes from home in our pajamas without getting dressed that makes you a sale in 20 minutes, I'm going to do that activity. That's what I'm going to do. So the first phase of the formula is story. But then what we have to do is we have to move it on to, that's one piece of value, because there's value in stories. There's emotional value in stories. The second phase is what we call the lesson phase.
So what we do with this is we basically go, what's the moral of the story? What's the lesson that we can pull out to turn that story into some kind of fable? So Kennedy's story about genuinely right now, as we record this, having the decorators in his house, and he doesn't know when they're suddenly going to turn the sander on and it's all going to disrupt everything in his life and he won't be able to do anything. That gets related across to, it's a bit like, every day you're just pottering around, getting on with your business, sending emails, and you never know when Apple are going to bring in some new iOS thing and they're suddenly going to take everything away from us, or Gmail are going to introduce a second promotions tab and suddenly everything's going to change. So so what we have to do instead is we have to work with the information we've got. We can't wait and worry about what's going to happen tomorrow or what happened yesterday and might happen again next week. We've just got to wait. So literally just off the top of my head, I've just turned that into the very first lesson I could think of. You better just to start sending emails today. Don't worry about what's going to happen tomorrow. Just have a go, do the best job you can do right now with the information you've got right now. There you go. There's a simple lesson, gives people a bit of permission, a bit of inspiration, a bit of insight, and that's as complicated as that gets. We're literally looking to say, if we want to turn this little story into something that means something with regards to what you sell, and if you sell some kind of service or some kind of course type product, it's going to be information based. If what you sell is a physical product, like we spoke to a guy who said, how do I do this? I sell beds for dogs. How do I do this? Well, you can give away everything. You can talk about everything you possibly want to, because people can't do it unless they know how to make your particular type of dog bed themselves. They can't do anything with it. So your story then, your lesson then becomes about how to make sure your dog gets the best night's sleep, how to make sure their appetite is good so they get the best, all of those things. And so what that means is, even if you only had 10 or 15 things to teach, because 365 days of the year, you've got a different story, you've got a different way to relate that story to that message. And what happens is every single day, different people on your email list, the penny will drop for them. Different people need to hear different things in different ways in order for it to all make sense. And so that's a really powerful thing to do. And every time we do this, we get replies from different types of people. So when we sent at the start of 2020, I took up running for a little while, having never run before. And I sent out a couple of emails about this running habit that I'd got into. And what's interesting is we got replies from people in every different possible walk of life. Some people replied and said, oh my God, I love running. You're going to love it. You'll be addicted. You're going to be hooked. Other people said, I hate running. Why have you done that? You're going to hate it. It's going to be awful. One person even replied and said, my business is selling high visibility running vests on Amazon. Send me your size and your address and I'll send you one. And so what that means is we're really connecting with people through the story. And
what you're pointing out here, I think, is something I wanted to talk about too, is actually, and this doesn't seem to be the goal of most email marketers, is actually getting people to email you back.
Yes.
Right. That, I think, is something people overlook. Where, like, really good email marketing actually feels to the recipient like, hey, I'd like to engage. Just like, we talk about engagement on all the social media platforms. And I'm realizing through our conversation how much this is taking the behavior that so many people are doing on social media and actually moving it to email, which makes an incredible amount of sense, because as a business coach, I'm out there promoting all the time that work on your owned land. You don't own Facebook and LinkedIn, and you're subject to whatever changes they decide to make. Your email, we don't own Apple's land, and they're constantly adding new things, but you do own the relationships and your email list. And I think it's a really intriguing idea to start behaving similar in email marketing as we do in social media. And one of those things is engagement, to actually get people to email you back with feedback, I think, is really powerful. All right, so I want to go back because I think this is so important. These three pieces: story, lesson. What's the third piece?
Yeah, so the third piece, I want to support another point you made there, and then we're just going to tease that third piece a little bit longer, for dramatic reasons, everybody, lean in. So what's really interesting about, you said about people replying, People often ask us, how do I make sure I don't get in the spam folder or out the promotions folder? Honestly, getting people to reply to your emails is the second best thing you can do to prove how good your emails are. When Gmail sees somebody reply to one of your emails, they get all excited up at Google offices. They all stand up. They put their arms in the air. They play music and trumpets. Seriously, they really, really like it. That's a really good sign. Because if it was just promotional spam, people would not reply to that. Because the best thing, by the way, in case you're wondering what the number one thing is, and this is trickier to do, but we have strategies to do it, and that is the number one thing is to get people to forward your emails to their other friends. That's like the gold of
That's like Nirvana. I don't know that I've ever had that happen.
Right,
Please,
right.
If you're listening and you have, let me know, because that seems like wow, that's the ultimate goal.
Yeah. So so you've got story, there's value there. The lesson, value there. The final bit is the offer. Segue into that offer and say, if you want to be able to do this faster or quick or with less hurdles or whatever, with our guidance, use our templates, whatever it is that you do, here's how you can go and do that. That's the paid offer. Or it could be, we talk about that more on this week's episode of the Email Marketing Show podcast, or your podcast, or your YouTube channel, or whatever it is that you do, you can direct them to that. Story, lesson, offer. And here's the beautiful thing. We talked about having frameworks that remove the amount of work you've got to do, that remove the amount of thinking you've got to do, that reduce the cognitive load. This framework means you don't ever have to wonder, I'm going to send an email. Should it be a value-based email, or have I got enough goodwill now that I can actually make an offer? No! You can send story, lesson, offer every day, and you automatically, without having to think about it, are outweighing the offer with value 2-to-1 on autopilot. You can't even help it. Story and lesson, 2 bits of value. Offer. Sometimes that's valuable too, because it's a free thing. Sometimes you're making an ask, and you can't even help it. And here's the really cool thing. When we're writing the story, we have no idea how it's going to relate to a lesson. Don't think about that. Just let the story come out of your fingers. And by the time you get to the end of that little story, which takes 2 or 3 lines, you'll know the moral of that story. You know what your audience needs to hear about it. And then by the time you've finished writing that lesson, you'll know how your solutions fix, speed up, whatever, make it easier, faster, stronger to do those things. Don't think ahead. Just think about the now bit. That's it.
Wow. So it's such a great framework. And I totally agree with you as far as the, people process as they write, and I just want to point that out. And from a marketing, like when I'm working with my coaching clients on marketing content, I just always tell them, it's like, write your website content, your website copy as you feel it. And then for marketing purposes, we almost always flip it. Right? Because we almost always write the best thing at the end. We almost always deliver the lesson at the end. But from a marketing perspective, we need to get people's attention quickly, so we move that on top. But innately, people naturally process as they're writing. So I believe you, and maybe this plays into the next thing I wanted to ask you, which is, how can we encourage people to get started? I think one of it is just start writing, right? Without the pressure of what's the lesson, what's the offer. But if you just simply start, it sounds like what you're saying, and I agree with you. Like, the lesson will come to you, and the offer. And I have to pull back here because there's so much of it in my wheelhouse. None of this really works unless you've done the work to really understand your audience in the first place. You'd agree with that? I mean, you have to really understand, so that you're sharing a story about decorators in your house, but your audience so well, what in that story is a lesson that fits to them. So does it go back to like really knowing who's on your list?
One of the interesting things is that we are probably 2 of the least, and we work at this, but we are probably 2 of the least relatable people you could want to follow on the internet. I'm a hypnotist with bright red hair. Kennedy's a mentalist with bright blonde hair. We've never had a job. We've never flipped a burger or poured a coffee for anybody. We've always worked for ourselves from leaving full-time education. And so we have this interesting balance where we talk about some bizarre things in our emails that should push our audience miles away, but they just don't. So we talk about the fact that when I'm performing, I'm sending emails about the fact that I'm sending this email from a service station at the side of the M1 motorway. and because I'm off to do a show in a theater for 800 people tonight, and my audience can't relate that to that at all. Some of our audience are building their business as a side hustle and trying to get out of a job they're frustrated by, while I appear to be, quotes, living the dream. Don't we all paint the best picture of all the good bits? But of course, you talk about the bad bits as well. And I think what's interesting about it is, in theory, by old marketing practices, we should all talk about it and paint the picture. Our lives are just like their lives. We're just a couple of steps ahead and they should follow us. But actually, we're quite different to that. And it seems to just work. Now, what it definitely does, it definitely polarizes. And that's okay as well. So I think rather than trying to understand your audience, one of the things that we do is we say that all subscribers aren't Pokemon, which means you don't have to catch them all. And so what we really do is we work on refining a relationship with a really
Actually, wait a minute. I have to back up and say that subscribers aren't Pokemon.
Yeah.
Love it. I just wanted to make sure everybody understood what you said. Very generational for who you are, but I also really get it. I love that.
And so I think one of the things is we run emailmarketingheroes.com. We have just under 5,000 subscribers on our email list right now. So we don't have a list of 100,000 people or 50,000 people or this huge number that loads of people will be aspiring to get to, because we are constantly working on cutting the fat, trimming down, getting it lean, because that keeps our costs low. It means the relationship's easier to build. The deliverability of it all is simpler. And so we really focus on that. And so what that means is we just turn up every day as ourselves, almost right for yourself. One of our philosophies, when people unsubscribe or they reply and say, stop emailing me, get out of my inbox, or they swear, or they say, I don't like your emails, or they try and teach us how to do email marketing, you should send emails like this, they'll do better. And so what our attitude is really simple, and it sounds flippant, it might sound arrogant, it's not intended to, but I think everyone listening should take this approach. And that is to think of your emails and your email marketing as your house. We tend to think naturally that when somebody opts into our list and we're starting to email them, that we've broken into their house because it feels intrusive. We're in their inbox. We think of it the other way around. You've got your house, you've decorated it the way you want it to. Kennedy's still having his done, but you've got the house decorated the way you want it to be, and you've invited them in. I'm writing these emails that are valuable for free, and you're welcome to have them, but that's on my terms and all the rest of it. And if at any point you don't like the wallpaper or you think I put too much sugar in the tea, that's okay. You can leave,
brilliant.
You can unsubscribe, and we'll say goodbye.
You're 100% right. We feel like we've broken into somebody else's house. You're absolutely right. Like, we feel like getting into somebody's inbox is like breaking into their house, and we're grateful when they haven't called the police on us.
Right. Exactly.
But to reverse that mentality and say, no, this is the house that I built. I have something to share in that house. You're welcome to come in for a cup of tea or coffee. Brilliant.
Here's the proof. They ask for the invite to the house.
Yeah.
Right? They put their email address in, and you've got an unsubscribe link in the footer, so the door's still open. They can leave whenever they want. They're not there under duress.
Interesting thing though, just literally a few days ago, we Linda, who handles our customer support, sent us a message on Slack, and this was one of the best messages we've ever seen. A guy had bought, who teaches guitar on the internet. He teaches people to play the guitar on the internet. He had bought our course, which is called the Bottomless Email Strategy. It's the thing where we unpack all of this stuff. And he got in touch and he said, look, I was going through it. I didn't really like it. I didn't think it was going to work for me. I wasn't impressed. And I was about to ask for a refund. That's what the beginning of this thing said. And the reason Linda had pointed it out to us was because he then went on and said, I'm just trying to find it quickly. He then went on and said, but then I thought, I'm going to take one of your templates, I'm going to send it out, and I'm going to see what happens. And then that's that. And he sent out one of the emails using one of our frameworks. It's similar to Story Lesson Offer, but slightly different. He sent that out, and in the first few hours, it made over $600 in sales. And he'd even gone to the effort, he made them look nice and everything, of screenshotting a whole bunch of replies that came in saying, love this email, this is amazing, blah, 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 blah. Because what he did was he, in his words, not something I would say, but in his words, he kept it real following our advice, and he told stories about what was going on, related it to guitar, and then linked to the course. And made $600 in the first few hours from the first email that he sent out using this formula. So it's really interesting for us
I want to give kudos to him, by the way, Rob, for like taking some action on something he didn't even like.
Right.
Yeah. Nice, and
the last line was, I don't want a refund anymore. So I think one of the interesting things to get over this hurdle is just because everybody thinks this won't work for me. My business is different. My products are different. My audience are different. That's true, but they're all humans. And when you send an email, not 100% of your subscribers are going to like this type of email, and that's okay. They shouldn't be on your list, but you'll make way more money and way more of an impact with the smaller number of people that you've got once you've trimmed the fat, the smaller number of people who do love receiving these emails than you will by trying to collect everyone on your list. What's the point in having a list of 1 million people you're too frightened to email? I suppose is the best way to wrap that up.
I love the mind reset here and thinking about it as, it's your house. You've built the house, and you're welcoming people into it. And if they don't like their stay, they can leave. But what you end up with is people in your house that get along and that want to learn and grow with each other. So I absolutely love that. What then? And a tough question, I'm sure, but what would you encourage people to do as their very first step? Like, let's hope we motivated them. Like, what do you want them to do first?
So please, if you're emailing once a month or once a week, please do not start emailing your list every day. I know what sounds like I shouldn't be saying that, right? But we keep it really real, really practical. If you do, what would happen is people will get upset because they're like, what are you doing? Has somebody broken in to my house? So you don't want to do that. You want to tell them that's going to happen. You're going to set a date. You're going to say on Monday, let's say today was Monday, right? You say next Monday, I'm going to start emailing you every day, but don't apologize. It's valuable. Tell you what now, my first ever online course was $100 for an email every single day for a month. People paid for that. This is really valuable. Rob opted into somebody's list yesterday, sent me the screenshot to get on his list. It's like $100 a month. Like, this is really valuable stuff. So don't apologize. You want to, I'm going to use air quotes, sell them on the benefits of that. So for example, if we said to you, one of our our absolute top lead magnet is get our daily emails, our tips, inspiration, and ideas to improve your emails every single day. Do you want those things? Put your email address in here. That works so well. So show to your listeners, say, hey, I want to show up with more value, more regularly to help you to whatever it is that you do, learn the guitar faster, bake better cakes, grow your business, whatever it is you do. And there's no charge for this. You absolutely don't need to pay for this. I'm going to show them every day and help you. And now here's the important bit, let them say no. And if you don't want that, if that sounds like hell, or use your personality, whatever suits you, here's a link and I'll make sure you're not included in this. That's totally fine. That's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is you could say, I'm going to start emailing every single day. You can go and join my daily emails list over here and opt in. We would do the opt out thing personally because I think that's easier to sort of maintain, honestly, and people can leave at any time anyway. So make sure that you're going to tell them why it's of benefit. I'm going to help you with this. There's going to be no charge. This is the benefit to you. And then remind them a couple of times in the lead up to it and then do it. So you want to definitely transition.
Fantastic. Well, this has been just full of just incredible insights into email marketing. And like I said, a really significant mindset shift. And honestly, you guys, this is the most, I'll say, contemporary modern thinking about email that I've heard. And it's so welcomed and so needed because I just think, this is your land. This is your house as a business owner. And instead of treating it as breaking into somebody's house or the occasional email where you're just selling people, for me, what really hits home is thinking of it also as just as another platform in which you're engaging with people. Like you said, another app on the phone to start thinking about the Outlook app, if you will, or whatever app somebody's using, is that it's just another social media app that they can become accustomed. Granted, you might be hopefully you will be the standout amongst all the garbage that's coming into that app.
Cool
but be the standout.
The bar is so low. All you've got to be is less rubbish than everything else they're getting.
Yeah. Oh, just fantastic. All right. But before I let you guys go, we're going to do our traditional rapid round here. I will tell you, this is one of those episodes I'm going to go back and listen to again. And I would recommend to anyone listening in that you go back and listen to this whole episode again. There's a lot of content here, but let's do our rapid round. The rapid round around the acronym of SELF. The S in SELF stands for sustainability. What's one daily habit you each have that sustains you?
We do an interesting thing. We recently took up this drinkable meal thing that we do, which is an interesting thing. It's like full of vitamins and nutrition, all this other stuff. And we're not healthy conscious people. We like pies and gravy and fish and chips and everything else that British people like to eat that's not healthy. And so we recently took up this thing. So we basically don't eat 2 meals a day. We don't have breakfast and lunch. We have this drinkable meal thing instead, and then have a good dinner on a nighttime. To actually, it came about because we got a photo shoot coming up, and we thought we would lose some chins, and so that's why that started happening originally. And actually, it's amazing. It's our energy is up. We feel brighter and better. We even went away to an event and last week, and while everyone else was eating horribly unhealthy lunches, we were drinking this thing that tastes amazing and was really good. So yeah, that's definitely helping us stay energetic and on top of it and get stuff done quicker.
Excellent. The Kenny, did you want to add your habit? It sounded like you were being swept into that habit.
I mean, we share that same habit. But the other thing that I really like that changed my life a long time ago is no meetings before 11 o'clock, because I have this philosophy of output before input. So I write my emails, I put my social media posts up, I write my campaigns, I do all my output stuff before any input, because I don't want somebody else controlling what I focus on or how I feel for the rest of my day. I want to decide that in the first 2 hours of my day. So output before input.
Love it. The E in self stands for elevate. What's one thing you would suggest we do to elevate our business?
I think a lot of this comes down to asking the right questions and then focusing on the right things off of that. And this is something we got really good at in the last 12 months, is to decide what's the focus of our business right now, and is the thing we want to do naturally really the thing that's going to guide that. So for example, we love creating new campaigns and new cool ways to convert our subscribers into customers. The problem is we've got a really good system for doing that, and our focus really needs to be on bringing more subscribers in the front end. That's really where we should be focusing, because we've got an amazing system that turns every subscriber into about $12 a month. So if we just put more subscribers in and don't touch our emails at all now, apart from sending a little email every day, that's going to do us a better job. And so we found ourselves constantly thinking, how do we create something new to sell? How do we create something new to sell? Just because that's what we naturally enjoy doing. But it's definitely not the best way to grow a business. The best way is to create the thing that works, get it refined, which we've done a really good job of, and then plow people in the front. So just always make sure that the thing you're focusing on, you're not focusing on just because it's the thing that's naturally easiest to you. It's probably not the biggest lever in your business.
For me, it's got to be around just questioning everything, questioning the norms, like the way email marketing has been done forever. We all know it's terrible. No one's come out and said it before. What can you stand in the face of in your industry and say, no, that's not good? Can we do something different? Because what we're saying here is not revolutionary. Like being nice, sending better emails and being a nicer person and being transparent, that's not new. But applying it to email marketing makes people want us on their podcast, want us to share stages with them in keynote at events and join our programs, only because we've elevated that thinking about something that was already a pain for so many people.
Awesome. The L in self stands for let's go. What's one action step? We kind of touched on that, but let's get everybody going. What's one action step you suggest that we all take today?
Take half an hour. Do whatever it is that you do to build pages on the internet, like some sort of page builder. Throw up the simplest, Kennedy hinted at it before, throw up the simplest landing page in the world that says, would you like to get my X times a week, my daily or 3 times a week emails? Put your email address in, about X, put your email address in here, hook it up to your email system so that they come into your system, go. Just everyone on earth should have something close to a daily email newsletter that they send out to their audience, and an easy way for people to get on that newsletter. And then put that on all of your social media, put it in your link in bio on Instagram, on LinkedIn, everywhere else.
Yeah, I'm going to say exactly the same thing. And remember, like daily could be 3 times a week. It could be Monday to Friday. It could be 5 days a week. It could be 7 if you really want to go for it. So yeah, I would say do that, because I ran a secret split test in our business, which I didn't tell Rob about, where we were testing a regular lead magnet versus get our daily emails. Get our daily emails kicked it so hard. And guess what? When you email people daily, when they've asked for you to email them daily, they really like it.
Awesome. The F in self stands for facing a challenge. With all that you've accomplished, what's one challenge you still face?
I think for me, one of the things I definitely do is spend a lot of time overthinking and going over and questioning and doing stuff like that. I think we're quite decisive and we move very quickly. And when we say we're going to get stuff done, everyone on our team and people and agencies and stuff that we work with are always a bit sort of flabbergasted by how fast we'll turn something around. They'll say, we'll need this piece of copy or this video, and we do it very quickly. But I think that there's a real challenge with just constantly overthinking it and going back and around and saying, but is there something else we're missing? Because this all seems to be quite simple. And like, what don't we know? And worrying about what we don't know.
Well, I can tell you, nobody listening to this podcast is an overthinker. That fits a lot of us.
Yeah, I think for me, it's there's a really interesting phrase I heard from a friend of mine, which is about when you look at other people and you think, oh, I would have done that differently, I would have done that better, and I wouldn't have done that. And the phrase that comes out of this is, I expect myself from other people, and we can't do that. You can't expect you from other people. And that's because there's a gap between what they're doing and what you're expecting, and that's when friction happens. So don't expect yourself from other people.
Awesome. Well, guys, this has been great. Tell us more, a way to find out more about you, your work, and all that you have to offer.
Yeah, I mean, if you like podcasts, and I'm guessing you do, you can come and check out our podcast, The Email Marketing Show. It's well over 100 episodes now, and every Wednesday it's a new episode with us talking about witty, funny, and irreverent approaches to email marketing. Come and check it out. Just look for The Email Marketing Show wherever it is that you get your podcasts. We've also got a really cool free thing that we'd love to tell you about. Kennedy.
We would. So if basically one of the things we talked about earlier was that getting open rates don't exist anymore, but you've got to get people to click on the links in your emails. The problem with that is people can become like banner blind to the links in your emails. Like, how do you dress up the links in your emails without always using a link or a button? Like, how do you do that? We've got 12 different creative ways that we get more clicks from our emails that you can apply to the very next email you send. And it's a resource of ours that we call Click Tricks. And we want to give it to you for free. It's not like a sales thing or anything. So basically, if you go to emailmarketingheroes.com/self, emailmarketingheroes.com/self, you'll be able to grab hold of that resource.
Fantastic. I'm going to grab it. That sounds great. So, and of course, we'll make sure all those links are also available on our show notes as well. So you can go to jeffreyshaw.com/podcast and grab all those links. Now, I'll tell you, in knowing we're going to have this conversation today, but you really turned my mind upside down. But some listeners may know that I've actually put my email marketing on hold a bit because of my desire to reinvent it in a different way, in a way that's more meaningful in all the ways that you've talked about. So I'm pretty excited about what lies ahead. I'm not going to show my hand of cards yet, but you've given me ideas, and my team and I have been pulling together some ideas that we're really excited about. But I'm definitely going to take a lot of what you said and make what we provide as value even more compelling and interesting because I know my audience so incredibly well that I want to make sure I serve you. So if you want to see when that's coming and what's coming up, you can hop on over to selfemployednewsletter.com. Sign yourself up. I don't know exactly when, but I will tell you within the next few weeks, we will be reinventing email, taking into consideration all that we've learned from you as well. Again, that's selfemployednewsletter.com, because I'm really looking forward to having as deep relationships through email marketing as I have in all the other ways of my life, to be my personal interactions with my clients, my students in the Self-Employed Business Institute. I want to keep that going in a deeper way. So I thank you guys so much for your work and your message and your mindset shifts around email marketing. A lot of great stuff. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Remember, you might be in business for yourself, but you're not in business by yourself. Be your best self, be proud, and keep changing the world.